Hey guys, Bart from TST Industries here. In this video, we're going to show you the installation of the TST Industries Fender Eliminator on a 2012 and up Honda 1000RR. Now, our Fender Eliminator is made of corrosion-resistant steel and coated with a nice flat black powder coat for longevity. It comes with stainless steel hardware and also full color step-by-step instructions, but since we're doing this video, probably won't need those. All right, so this part will enable you to remove the ginormous fender that comes on this bike and remount your license plate to the undertail area right about here. Now, this will also do away with your signaling components as well as your license plate light. So for that reason, we have our pod signal kit that attaches to the back of this system. You can opt to purchase that to get signals back on your bike, or we also have an integrated tail light and a choice of clear smoke lens. Of course, as you guys may know, the integrated tail light incorporates the signaling functions into the capsule of the tail light. All right, we also have a nice license plate light solution that goes really nicely with this setup. So I hope you guys can check out those components on our website and also the videos that we have for the installation of those components on our YouTube channel. For this installation, we will only be focusing on mounting this part onto the bike and the license plate onto that. All right, so without further ado, let's get going. So in the first step, we will be removing the seats, starting with the passenger seat. So to undo the driver's seat, we first need to gain access underneath it, under this side shroud. So I will get my forefinger under the tip of it and pry it off. And there's a friction fastener that needs to be released straight out, perpendicular to the center axis of the bike, just like that. And then this whole panel pivots out to unlock it. Here's the friction fastener that came out of this location, straight out. All right, once this is loosened, we have access to this Phillips screw. Now you can use a really large head Phillips screwdriver with a lot of force towards the inside, towards the center of the bike. I prefer to use an impact type gun that allows me to get a lot of pressure on it, and it comes out really easily. All right, once I get this done, I will repeat the procedure on the left side of the bike. And now that I have the seat released, it should just come right out. Front leading edge first, and then disengage these tabs from the back and put it to the side. On this following step, we will be disconnecting some of the plugs that need to be taken out in order to release the components that will be coming off the bike. Now, generally, you won't see this on other bikes. This is an accessory that was added aftermarket. And now we will also need to release this plug, which is connected to the sub harness that connects this portion of the bike to the signals, and it's actually snaked through the tail section and through the fender. So we will need to extract the fender and then disassemble it so we could take this back out and plug it back in here. So again, a little screwdriver comes in really handy here. All right, now that we have these out, we can get them routed to the inside of the trunk and ensure that they won't be snagged as we start disassembling some of these components here. In addition, I'm going to take this rubber out, make working here a little bit easier. All right, so it's meant to really just be pushed off to the side and remain in place. So I'll just unclip it, and now we'll move forward to the rear here, where I will unroute the taillight wire from the guide clip here. And I know it's tough for you guys to see in here because the light is kind of dim, but all these wires will need to be taken out from the routing clips that exist on the forward section of this undertail, so we could actually remove the components that these wires go to. Following my attempt to unroute all these wires in the trunk area, I've realized that we will actually have to unclip one of the undertail shrouds, the painted one, from the bike to be able to get to the routing clips and effectively get these wires out of their routing guide. So this next step will begin by the removal of 5 fasteners, 4 in here and 1 under the fuse box. Now we have this one remaining fastener underneath the fuse box. To lift the fuse box out of place, we will need a little flathead screwdriver. We'll pry up on the tab that locks it in place, and then pull the fuse box out. This is the tab that you'll need to pry up just slightly, and that will release it. And we can put that to the side, and we'll find that last fastener here. All right, so now that the fasteners are out, I'm going to illustrate to you guys here from the bottom that this panel is loose from the undertail, and now it will need to be slid forward to unlock it from the following locations. There's a large slide locking feature on either side here and here. There's also a smaller sliding lock feature that interacts between the painted panel and the black plastic panel here. And there are also 2, one on either side here and here. All of those will need to be disengaged. So how do we do that? We will pry away on the bottom first, and then up top, and manipulate this panel so that as we pry away and push forward, it'll become unlocked. All right, and before we start extracting it, we need to make sure that all of the locations disengaged, and it looks like I've done that. Be very careful with this lock system. All right, we'll put this panel to the side, and we'll be able to gain access to the area where we have those routing features over here. Now, you guys don't have to pay attention to this. This was that accessory I was talking about that is aftermarket. You will not likely have something like that on your bike. So let's now take a look at the routing features. Now we have access here. We can identify the wires that need to be unrouted, and I'm doing that by pushing the 2 plugged wires from the trunk in. You can see there's our sub harness plug, is our main taillight plug. Now that I've actually successfully unrouted them, the component you saw fall out was that rubber trunk keeper. I'm just gonna keep it on the tire for now, because as we reassemble all these components, I will need to put this back in. All right, so now we can jump up to the top. Okay, and now we can actually remove the 3 fasteners responsible for holding the fender onto the bike. These are 10mm hex heads. When I get to the last screw, I will need to support the fender so it doesn't just drop. Once the last thread is disengaged, the fender is just free to come out here. Just snake out the wires, And now we will put this fender off to the side on our work surface, and we will proceed to the extraction of the sub harness that will need to be replaced on the bike before proceeding to the next step. All right, so back on our work table now, we will take care of the extraction of the sub harness here that will enable us to plug into the bike's harness on one side and have OEM signal and license plate light plugs on the other side. So to do that, we will begin by removing 5mm Allen screws on either side here under the signals. If we flip the fender over to this orientation, we'll have access to this 8mm hex. We'll need to remove that one as well. When this nut comes out, it'll enable us to remove this reflector here, and that loosens this entire portion. So you just pop this out, put that to the side. Now we gain access to the inside here. There is a boot that can slip off, and we'll have access to our plugs that I mentioned before. I'll undo these plugs. I use a small screwdriver to pry up on the lock and withdraw the plug. Same here on the other side, signal plug. And for our license plate light leads, we have a Sumitomo type plug that basically just gets pressed in the center on the lock and withdraws just like that. So now we'll need to get the plug through. I feel like it's easier to get it through from the outside to the inside here. This is our sub harness that we will be keeping and replacing on the bike. The rest of the parts do not get reused. So let's move forward to the next step. All right, back on the bike now. I will reinstall the sub harness. So the way I do that is I take the black portion, the plug that plugs into the bike's harness, get it in through the trunk, out in the compartment underneath the driver's seat, and I immediately replace it in the plug that it came out of. And the other side stays within the trunk compartment. We'll just tuck it away in the forward portion here. In this particular video, we're only illustrating the installation of our Fender Eliminator. The Fender Eliminator eliminates your fender, as the name suggests, and gives you the ability to replace your license plate in a different position. Now, you will lose your license plate light, and you will also lose your signals because of this. So you can visit our store and either get a pod signal kit that mounts to your new license plate mount, or you can also do an integrated tail light that has the signal functions integrated onto the circuit board within the tail light. That is by far the most popular choice, and again, for the purpose of this video, we're just going to tuck this away and move on to the next step in the actual Fender Eliminator installation. Now we can replace this component, and just like we unclipped it, we will need to ensure that on the way back in, all of its interference geometry features fit into the windows. So all of these clips will need to engage on both sides. Basically the reverse order of disassembly. The trick is to get them all in simultaneously. What I like to do is get the rear ones in first, then the side, and then as I press in from the center of this panel here so that the last tab engages with the black undertail, I push with my other hand rearwards, and it all snaps together. And now I'll just inspect to make sure everything's engaged and the interference geometry is snapped together. Now we can jump up top and replace the 5 screws that we removed in an earlier step. At this point, we're replacing the 5 self-threading fasteners that we've taken out earlier. As I do this, I'll bottom them out right away. I'll tighten them down later. I like to support the red, the painted part from the bottom so that doesn't flex away and I don't lose placement. Before I tighten it all down, I'm going to place the one that goes underneath the fuse box. And this is my last one, so I'm going to tighten it all down because my placement is preserved. Looking good here. In this following step, we will need to make sure that we have access to the area under all this wiring and these components so that we could start marking and drilling our holes for our fender eliminator. So we just need to make sure that this fuse box is out of the way. I had it out of the way, I snapped it back in. Everything needs to be out for us to have access here. And also, we will need to remove the exhaust valve servo from its place here. Won't be removing it off the bike completely. We'll just take this one 8mm hex head screw out so that we can just move it out of the way and have enough access to get our fasteners in once we have the hole made. All right, now I just popped it out. I'm going to have to make sure that the cable for the valve goes back in. I'll show you guys how to do that a little bit later. All right, so let's go on to marking and drilling. If you read my text instructions, you will notice that I ask you to remove the battery from the battery tray, and that's because that is a slightly different process that I couldn't illustrate every single step of. So for this process, we will not be removing the battery because we will be drilling on the side of the battery after we mark this spot. So I've done a number of these, so I know roughly how to mark away from this corner and away from the surface here so that I have enough space for my nut to fit in there and to still get a tool around it so that when we start screwing the fender eliminator in from the underneath of the bike, I can still get a bite around this nut and get it on there. So we'll start step drilling from the top. I'm going to put a little dot there with a paint marker so that it's very visible for me against the black, and using a 3/16 drill bit, I'm going to have to extend it out as far as it'll go so I have the reach. Using that 3/16 inch drill bit, I'm just going to poke a hole through this undertail. And like I said, I am step drilling, so the final hole size that we are looking for is 1/4 inch, or if you're using metric, 6mm will do it. So now I will open up the hole to 1/4 inch and grab one of the screws from the kit and make sure that it fits, and it does. So the next step will take place from the perspective of the undertail. All right, so what I'm going to do now is just slot this hole out just a little bit. Just need to make sure I don't penetrate into the battery compartment. The reason for slotting it out is just to give it a little bit of lateral adjustability so that we can fine tune the position of this bracket. Now I will grab one of the screws, one of the washers that came with the kit, and arrange them like this and get that through the slot here in this orientation and get that through the undertail and grab one of the locking nuts and get that turned onto this screw protruding through the undertail. I'm not going to tighten down on this all the way just yet. Leave it loose so I can find the location of my other hole. And using that same paint marker, I will mark my hole from the bottom now. Okay, so as you guys can probably tell, we're not exactly on center here, and that's okay. This is the nature of this bike. The license plate will go into these slots, and we'll be able to fine tune it so that the license plate itself is center. Right now, I'm just gonna make sure that this is hanging level and as over to the right side as possible, and I will mark my next hole to drill in the undertail, and I did that right here. And now I'm gonna go ahead and step drill that. All right. So I'm gonna open up the hole with the 1/4" drill from the top because it's easier. And then that took care of my burrs that I made with the first pass with the smaller drill. Now I'm gonna grab the other washer, the other screw from the kit, pass it through the slot, get it through the undertail, and using that last locking nut with the locking component towards the undertail, I will screw these this fastener pair together. And now I'm just going to get it snug by hand. That will leave enough adjustability in the system for me to just fine tune it here before I lock it down. Now 10mm from the top, 4mm Allen from the bottom. That will be my method for tightening this. Now during tightening, you want to make sure that the locking elements of the nut bite into the material up top, but you don't want to smush the material together. You don't want to deform it, so don't over tighten it, just enough so that the locking components engage and prevent your system here from flying off due to vibration. At this point, we're ready to transfer our license plate from our stock system to our new setup here on the undertail. So we will reuse the OEM components for holding the license plate on. Like I mentioned before, now we can actually center the license plate on the bike. Tighten it all down. And then we can proceed to the reinstallation of all the other components in the reverse order of disassembly. I would like to note that in this particular installation, we were illustrating just the procedure for installing this component on the bike along with the license plate. We do sell a really nice license plate light that has 4 LEDs in it. It fits between the license plate and the bracket. It makes the connection really nice. I hope you guys consider purchasing that along with this system. Another thing I wanted to mention is that since we removed the fender, there are 4 shoulder washers here left behind, and they will inevitably vibrate out, and they're likely to hit the road surface, ricochet, and hit somebody's windshield or somebody. So let's pull them out at this point. Make sure that that doesn't happen. And as you can probably tell, there are voids left behind here in the undertail due to the removal of the fender. We do make a really nice cosmetic part that closes that out. It's really simple to install, and it's a nice aluminum CNC machined part, black anodized. Gives you a nice full closed out undertail finish just like that. We do have a separate video for that, so check that out. Check it out on our website. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and replace all of the components that we've taken out in the reverse order of this assembly, and then we'll be done. All right, so now let's get the exhaust valve servo connected to the exhaust valve cable that slipped out during disassembly. Now what we want to do is get the head of this cable into this position here, because the cable will go in here and will cause articulation to be away from the cable and then back on the spring. So let's get that in there. This is going to be a little bit cumbersome. Can't help but to block the view at times, but I will flip it over and show you guys once it's done. All right, so I'm going to attempt to flip this over for you guys to see. Got the cable end in that hole and the cable going through here. As we flip this back around, the cable will become captive in this geometry and everything will go back to normal. Just need to make sure that the reel is advanced to that position so the cable doesn't pop out. And now the servo is returned to its original location on the stud keeper through the grommet and aligned with the screw hole. And now we can replace that 8mm head screw that we removed earlier. And that can be tightened down immediately. At this point, we can place this fuse block. All right, and now we can proceed to the reinstallation of the driver's seat. All right, so now this installation is complete. The bike is ready to go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, please place them below in the comment feed. And check out our other videos, check out our website. I'll see you guys next time.